Well, most of you probably heard that Florida has tried to get rid of African-American history in terms of getting rid of the advanced placement class offered to high school students and even college students. But did you know that they also tried to get rid of the psychology class offered to high school students because it had some talk about sexuality? Because, you know, sexuality is part of psychology. I didn't until I talked with my friend Andrew Spar, who is, of course, the president of the Florida Education Association, the best part of Florida. I always learn so much from him. He is such a passionate, amazing leader, and he is my guest on today's episode of Can Ya Talk Real Quick? I reached out to Andrew yesterday. He updated me and filled me in on a whole bunch of issues. I really appreciate his perspective on all of these things, and I highly recommend you follow him on TikTok and all of the social media. Support this organization if you are in Florida. Definitely make sure you're getting all of their updates. There are so many amazing people down there. I've gone down there and spoken with them and campaigned with them and activisted with them, the teachers of Florida. Amazing people. And today we get to talk to the leader of so many of them, the head of the Florida Education Association, Andrew Spar. A tiny little issue with his microphone that I thought I could fix. Maybe I should have mentioned it. Maybe I should have. I don't know, but hopefully you don't notice it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do it right now with the president of the Florida Education Association. All right, there you go. Follow Andrew on TikTok. Follow the FEA and all social media. Support them, especially if you're in Florida. And thank you very much for listening to today's episode of Can You Talk Real Quick with the president of the Florida Education Association, the great Andrew Spar.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Right now, Andrew Spar joining me. Thank you so much. Sir, how is everything in Florida given the Hurricane Idalia?
Yeah, so Hurricane Idalia hit in the Big Bend area, an area that hasn't seen a hurricane in well over that size, anyhow, at least in well over 100 years. So we've got about 6 counties. They're mostly rural counties, but nonetheless, we got 6 counties that have had significant impacts and some others that have impacts as well. So we're actually, one of the things we do as a union is we get together with other unions and we're going to send support out to that area. We're going to send truckloads of ice and supplies, cleaning supplies, food, diapers, gloves, trash bags, flashlights, batteries, gas cans, you name it, just to make sure all our members in that area have what they need to continue to clean up and get life back to normal.
I wanted to ask you just about this shooting from last week now, and just your thoughts on it. This is obviously something that you've seen a lot in Florida, the gun laws in Florida, and all of the what I would call really racist rhetoric coming from the media and including the governor with all his anti-woke agenda. How did you guys handle that? I know it wasn't in a school, but still, I mean, Black folks and others terrorized when something like that happens.
It's a great question because teachers don't know what they're allowed to teach and discuss anymore in the schools. We have a governor and a commissioner of education, a state board of education that is really limiting what we can teach and what we can say and what we can discuss. And so, what teachers are able to say when you have a horrific event like what we saw in Jacksonville, clearly racially motivated. I don't think anyone is disputing that. What's at dispute is, what causes it? What causes people to become filled with such rage and hatred against a group of individuals that they will go out and kill them, hunt them down, essentially. And how do we reverse that? I don't think we change what's happening in America by not talking about it. And that's really what teachers have been told to do. You can't talk about race. You can't talk about the impacts of race. We can't talk about the LGBTQ plus community. You can't talk about differences that people may have that I think actually make our country stronger and more unique. And that's a real challenge for educators right now. And I think it's one of the contributing factors to the massive teacher and staff shortage we have in the state.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. That's a huge issue. And I was just reading about it, news coverage of it. The Secretary of Education says there's not a terrible teacher shortage. The Florida Education Association is inflating the numbers. This is ridiculous. This is a myth. His name is Diaz. What is his first name? I forget. But he's appointed by
Manny. But in the state of Florida, you can't call people by their nicknames anymore. So we have to call him Manuel.
Okay.
Diaz. Yeah. We can't call the governor Ron DeSantis anymore. He's now Ronald DeSantis.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, this is crazy. This is how crazy things are in Florida. In Florida's public schools right now, if you want to call a kid by a nickname, you need permission from the parent. So Pete, you're Peter. You can't be Pete in Florida schools unless a parent has signed a permission slip saying you can call my child Pete.
I kind of like that, though, because I would want to change my name to Lightning or something like that. And if my parents signed off on it, the teacher would be like, okay, Lightning, your hand is always up.
That's right.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's parents' rights, right?
Look, the basis behind it, and we'll get back to the other question, but the basis behind it really is this notion of they don't want kids being called names of under genders. But instead of saying, you're calling a boy by a female name or a female by a male name, we're just going to say any nicknames. That was what they came up with. Any nicknames, you need permission from the parents. So literally, if Susan goes by Sue, I need permission to call him Sue. I mean, I was in the classroom for 9 years. My wife still teaches in the classroom. We call kids by their nicknames all day long. That's what they want. They go by that name. Their parents call them that. Their aunts and uncles call them that. Their friends call them that. To sit here and say, we have to have permission. We are not calling kids by names they don't want to be called by. And I'm just of the mindset that parents and educators have great relationships and they do this all day long. But to now say you have to have a permission slip to actually call a kid by their nickname is crazy.
So let's get back to the teacher shortage issue that you, as the president of the Florida Education Association, have to think about, deal with, worry about, and have been railing on for years now, really, right?
Yeah, look, we've been dealing with a teacher shortage in Florida and across this nation, let's be honest, for a long time. When you're constantly undermining the profession, vilifying people who work in our schools, and underfunding schools so that you have low wages, no one's surprised by this massive teacher and staff shortage. What's interesting here in Florida is you've got a commissioner and a governor who want to downplay it, who want to say, it's not that bad. It's not that bad that we have, what they came up with was 1.2 vacancies per school. That's not that bad. That's how they want to talk about it. First of all, the way they get their numbers is they back out all of the classrooms that have temporary people in there right now, a substitute or a temporary teacher who are not certified, not degreed to teach the subject they're teaching, right? They don't necessarily have any of the skill sets you'd want a teacher to have, and they back those numbers out. So we actually think our numbers are lower. And what it came down to is we said there's 7,000 vacancies in the state of Florida at the beginning of the school year. The commissioner is saying, oh, no, it's not 7,000. It's more like, I forget what number he's saying, 5,000 or something. And so he's saying that, you see, the union is lying. What we did is we literally go to every district's website right before school starts. And we said, how many vacancies are you advertising? Mm-hmm. Now, we know that some districts, like I said, they're afraid of the commissioner. So they're not going to, when the commissioner calls them, which is what he said he did, when the commissioner calls and they go, how many classroom vacancies do you have right now? They're going to they're going to give them the number they think it is at that point. They're not going to include classrooms covered by substitutes, and they're not going to include positions that aren't classroom teachers, such as school counselors, media specialists, the librarians, school psychologists, school social workers, all the other folks who make sure the instruction happens at school.
That's the nuance and detail that I was missing in my research, and that's how they are able to do what they're doing with the numbers, or deny that it's the problem that clearly it is. The teachers know more than ever. I mean, I'm sure when you poll your members and ask, you know that there's a teacher shortage because you're talking to the teachers all the time, right? Do we need the data?
And here's the question I've asked, is, okay, so how many kids not having a teacher is too many? Yeah. Even if we use their numbers, 4,005, isn't that a lot?
Right.
4,000 to 5,000 classrooms without teachers, which could mean as many as 400,000 kids without teachers. You don't think that's a big deal? I mean, I actually think it is. I'm not going to argue with the commissioner over numbers. What I'm going to talk about is, what do we need to do to make sure that every child has a fully certified, trained teacher in front of them, right? A full-fledged teacher. I've talked about this before. Let me talk about it from a parent perspective. In 7th grade, my daughter's science teacher left halfway through the year. She didn't have a science teacher for half the year. Last year, this is my youngest daughter. My daughter's dance teacher left in the last quarter of the year. She didn't have a dance teacher at the end of the year. This year, my daughter started the year without an English teacher. and there's someone in the classroom who they're saying is an English teacher, but it's not the teacher who was supposed to teach the class. And I'm not even sure what his qualifications are. No offense to the teacher. I don't know the guy. But he was supposed to be doing something else at the school. They've moved him into this position. Is he the right person for the position? I don't know. And that's the challenge. But that's 3 years in a row. My daughter has not had a teacher in all of her classes all year long. And she's not alone. There's a lot of kids impacted like that.
I got to talk to you about this whole PragerU BS. The Florida Board of Education apparently approved the use of PragerU kids videos to be shown in K through 12 schools. In late July, they approved this, according to local news reports. Now, PragerU, of course, named after this real bizarre guy who is extremely controversial. He said all kinds of horrific things, very religious. Dennis Prager. Prager University Foundation apparently is a nonprofit organization, certainly has made him pretty wealthy, that says it makes videos that, quote, promote American values, calling them, quote, a free alternative to the dominant left-wing ideology in culture, media, and education. Of course, it's not a university, but you made a great TikTok video. Everybody should be following you on TikTok. You're very good on the TikTok, and I haven't seen one in too long, so let's get on it. But what could you tell us about this? I can't believe that we're talking about Prager University and Florida Public Schools.
Yeah, so let's not call it Prager University because that's not who they are. They're PragerU, and they're not a university because they couldn't get accredited or established as one. And so that's something to know. But look, Dennis Prager himself said their goal is to indoctrinate kids. So it's funny that, in the state where they're saying, stop indoctrinating kids with your woke ideology, I still need someone to explain to me, as someone who just understands this concept of if you're not woke, you're asleep, how being against, I don't get that. But anyhow, but they're saying we're indoctrinating kids with woke ideology, being awake, understanding things, being aware. But yet they literally said in what they put out, that Dennis Prager himself, that he wants to indoctrinate kids with their thinking. And so what is their thinking? I've watched a few of their videos. I would not encourage you to do so. They consider themselves an edutainment, which means they're educating and entertaining. I don't think they do either. They certainly don't educate. There is no educational value to their materials. They vilify teachers. They literally at one point in one video are saying your teacher is lying to you. They deny climate change in a video. One of the videos they have, it's all about denying climate change and how the government is behind the whole idea of climate change, or governments, because they actually did it in Poland, I think was the basis of that video, or Norway, one of them. And then they talk about slavery with Christopher Columbus, and they talk about how it was different times back then, and how Christopher Columbus is so pleased that we no longer have slavery in the United States. But they downplay slavery in that video. They have another video with someone else doing the same kind of thing. They have a video about the Boston Tea Party in which they show a cartoon of kids with plastic bottles of iced tea and hurling plastic bottles of iced tea in the ocean. And then they make a mockery of people who are concerned about the environment at the same time.
It's a weird, I don't want to watch that. You explain that on your TikTok video. They reenact the Tea Party, but they use plastic bottles. Of course, plastic bottles weren't a thing. There was no such thing as plastic then. And more importantly, they ridicule sustainability initiatives.
Correct. And pollution. Because they say you shouldn't be throwing plastic bottles in the ocean. Yeah, of course you shouldn't be, but that didn't happen in the Boston Tea Party because they didn't have plastic bottles back then, or iced tea for that matter.
And Columbus never stepped foot in America. I'm sure PragerU professors don't know that. Okay, so what's the status of that? Is that in the schools? What are we doing about this?
So the good news is no school district that I know of has adopted it. So typically how it works in Florida, and this is true in a lot of states, the state has an adoption list that you can use, materials you can use in the classroom. Schools, districts then have to approve it, and then teachers can use it. I don't know of any school districts that have approved it, but let me tell you something on this. What teachers are asking for is resources that align with these new standards and this environment that we're in, and they're not getting it. Instead, they're getting this garbage from PragerU. Teachers are asking for the ability to make sure kids see themselves in learning with robust book resources. And instead of that, we're seeing books being pulled out of schools, and we're seeing PragerU. this is an attack on curriculum, right? This is an attack on what kids should be learning. And as a parent, I want my child to be exposed to varying viewpoints. I want my child to hear the whole story, the complete truth, not just parts that someone has selected out. I want them to be able to be challenged in their thinking, and I want them to ask a lot of questions. And it seems like we're not allowing that anymore in the state of Florida. And then, in fact, we do see a state that's trying to indoctrinate students by limiting what they can learn, by limiting free thought, by limiting independent ideas. That's not who we are as a country. That's certainly not who we are as a community. And that's something we should fight against with all our might. And we are here.
Yeah, you certainly are. And you're actually making progress. You're winning some battles. The war continues, of course, of ideas and what can and shouldn't be taught. A lot of us have heard about the state government, Ron DeSantis and Republicans in Florida getting rid of AP, Advanced Placement, African American History. I want you to talk about that, but more importantly, you guys just had a big win because they tried to get rid of AP Psychology because part of psychology, they talk about sexuality and obviously things come up. Now, of course, AP is a class that you take as a high school student that you get credit for college. I didn't know that until my kids were in high school, because if that was a thing when I was younger, Andrew, they never talked to me about those classes. I was in a different class with some of my friends that learned like I do. Anyway, the point is, this is a psychology class you can take and get credit. They tried to get rid of it as a result of your efforts and others. You got it back. Like, they did a reversal, is my understanding on this. Take me through what they're doing with AP, African American History, Psychology, and what you're doing to fight back.
Yeah, so we absolutely did get a win on it. We being parents and educators and people who care about public education and the education of our students. Let's start with this. AP stands for Advanced Placement Classes. These are high-level, college-level classes taught in high school. Kids who take these classes get college credit.
Right.
They can use that college credit when they go off to school. They can use the fact that they're in advanced placement classes to increase their grade point average. Most districts give a higher grade point value to those classes. They can use them to get into colleges and universities they want to, and to get access to scholarships and grants to help pay for college. So it opens a lot of doors. The other important thing to know about advanced placement classes is, one, you have to get into the class. It's not something that any kid goes into. You have to have met the criteria to get into the class, Pete, and was even when you or I were in school. I did not take advanced placement classes either. I'm just
that surprises me. You were too busy with music or something.
That's right. I was doing music. But they have advanced placement classes in the arts. They have advanced placement classes in math, in science, in English, in everything just about, right? And they have this advanced placement psychology class, which is actually one of the most popular advanced placement classes that they offer, the College Board offers. And parents have to sign their kids up for them. So a kid gets into the class, parents have to sign off that they want their kid to take advanced placement classes. You don't typically take advanced placement classes till high school. Very often it's like 10th, 11th, 12th grade. And that's what you would be seeing with a advanced placement psychology class. It's usually upperclassmen in high school who are taking the class. And Florida literally wanted to ban the class and said to the College Board, if they did not change the class for Florida and take out any discussion about gender identity or sexual orientation, then this class would not be allowed in Florida. The College Board said, no way, we're not adjusting the course just for Florida. It's a course that's been taught for years, and that's an important part of it, and it is what allows for us to offer college credit. And so they then banned that course. There was a lot of pushback. The commissioner did double take, said it can be allowed, but then was very weird in how he worded it. It can be allowed as long as it complies with Florida law, a kind of comment. And then we pushed for more clarity, and he finally came out as it is taught without any modifications. The class can be taught in Florida. The unfortunate thing is a lot of school districts already canceled the class days. This all happened days before the school year started. And so some schools are not offering it. And I've continued to tell parents they should be calling school board members, superintendents, the commissioner, the governor, and saying, this is not okay. And then, of course, with advanced placement in African American studies. It is not allowed in the state of Florida. And again, he's saying this is because we don't allow for these kinds of things to be taught without parent approval. Yet parents have to approve of their kid taking the course.
Right.
And the governor is blocking me and other parents from letting our kids take that course.
Oh, my God. It's terrible. Also, we just have to ask you about your union and unions in general in the state. The state has done everything they can, Florida Republicans, to try to make forming and having a union harder. It always threatened labor unions. It's always been unfriendly, that state, to unions, as I've learned so much about the history of, but they are not stopping. They haven't stopped. What's been the latest attack on organized labor, and where are you guys at with fighting against that?
Yeah, so, we had last year the worst piece of legislation ever passed as it relates to labor unions trying to take away the right of our members to decide how to pay their union dues and how to spend their union money. When we as a union make decisions on where we're spending money, it's based on budgets approved by our members. It's based on requests that come from our members. And so our members are very involved in their union, which is what we want them to do. And B, the difference is no one else is. Like, if you choose not to be in part of your union, you don't get a say in your union. Who would think otherwise? But what they did is they passed this legislation that no longer allows employees to have their union dues deducted from their paycheck. They now have to find alternatives, and we are fighting that in court, that and other provisions, crazy provisions in this law that are meant to kill unions. That's their goal, kill us off. And so, look, the governor signed that legislation a little under 4 months ago. And in that 4 months, we have moved almost now, hopefully by the time next day or two, we will have 100,000 members already signed up. And we're well on our way to getting back the 142,000 members that the governor basically took away their membership with the mark of a pen and said, you now have to figure out how you're going to join their union. And know that there are groups out there who are trying to convince our members not to be a member of their union. They're trying to tell them, they literally said stuff like, look, your school district will take care of you. They won't hurt you. They won't minimize your pay or take away your stuff. That didn't work because most teachers and employees in the school districts know we're not going to just trust the district to take care of us. Two, they then said, well, your contract will continue. Well, in Florida law, in the Constitution in Florida, they have the right to a collectively bargained agreement, a contract through and by their union. You take out the union, there's no contract. You lose those contract protections. And so they tried that route, saying your contract will continue. Not true. That didn't work. Now they're telling people, well, just go form your own union. So think about that. These are powerful, big funded groups, the likes of tied into Moms for Liberty, Americans for Prosperity, some of these other big conservative groups you've heard out there with lots of deep pockets. They are literally trying to tell people, go start your own union. You don't need these unions. Go start your own union. And so the question we ask our members all the time is, why do you think they're doing that? And everyone gets it. They're trying to divide us. Why? Because when we're divided, we're fighting over the crumbs. They can continue to do what they want. But when we're united and we're saying, no, you're going to take care of kids in the state of Florida. You're going to make sure that the people who work in our schools are treated with dignity and respect. And we're going to keep in an organized way fighting back. That becomes a problem for those who want to destroy public education. And so I'm proud of the work that our local unions are doing around the state. We're not where we want to be for sure, but they thought we would be dead. We're certainly far from anything of being dead. And we're going to be stronger than we ever were before. And what I've told our folks is just imagine when the legislative session starts in January, that the Florida Education Association has as many members as it had last year when they thought they killed us, because that's not happening in Florida.
Yeah. So glad that you're down there doing everything that you do every day. Always so inspiring. And it's the best thing about Florida is the Florida Education Association. I appreciate you joining me as always, buddy, and your passion and your leadership. Thank you very much. Keep it up. Tell all my friends I said hello.
I will do that, Pete. Thanks for having me as always. Keep up the great work you're doing.
Yeah, I certainly will. Thank you very much, Andrew. Spar, Florida Education Association. All the links in the show notes. Check them out. Check him out. Follow him on TikTok. Support me with a paid subscription on patreon.com/PeteDominic. And I will be back very soon with another edition of Stand Up with Pete Dominic. Can't do it without you. Thank you for your support. John Carroll taking us out as always.
Let the brave meet the challenge. Let the weak flee. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light.